All right, today we are jumping right into a fascinating medical mystery. We're looking at a situation where a patient's kidneys seem to be completely shutting down, but the clues, well, they just don't quite add up. It looks like kidney failure, but it might not be what you think. So let's set the scene. A patient gets brought into the ER. They've been sick, maybe vomiting for days, and they are severely dehydrated. You run some labs and you see their creatinine, that's a key waste product the kidneys clear, is shooting up, and their urine output has basically dropped to almost nothing. I mean, every single sign is just screaming acute kidney failure. It's a really critical situation. But here's the twist, the central question that this whole thing hangs on. Is the kidney itself actually broken? Is the tissue damaged? Surprisingly, the answer is often no. Sometimes the problem isn't with the organ at all, but with its supply line. And that brings us to the main event, prerenal acute kidney injury, or AKI. Now that term prerenal, it literally just means before the kidney. This is a condition where the kidneys start to fail for one simple reason. They're not getting enough blood. The kidney structures themselves, they're totally fine, totally healthy. They're just, well, they're starving for blood flow. Now, to really get what's going on here, you first have to understand that there are three main ways the kidneys can get into trouble. Think of them as the three main suspects in our little investigation. And it all comes down to where the problem is. First, you've got prerenal. That's our focus today, where the issue is a drop in blood flow before it even reaches the kidney. Second, you've got intrinsic injury. That means the kidney tissue itself is actually damaged, maybe from a toxin or some kind of inflammation. And third, there's postrenal injury, which is basically a plumbing problem, a blockage after the kidney, like a big kidney stone that stops urine from getting out. So, how in the world do you tell a prerenal injury apart from the others? Well, this is where the investigation gets really interesting. We start by looking at the clues. Clues left behind by a perfectly healthy kidney that is fighting for its life, trying to cope with a crisis. And this number right here really tells you everything you need to know about how important blood flow is to the kidneys. On any given day, your kidneys are getting a massive 20 to 25% of all the blood your heart pumps. That is a huge amount. They are incredibly blood-hungry organs, and they need that high flow to do their job of filtering everything. So naturally, when that flow drops, the whole system starts to break down. But here's the incredible part. The kidney doesn't just sit there and take it. Oh no, it launches an all-out rescue mission. Your body hits the panic button and activates these powerful hormonal systems. You've got RAS, the sympathetic nervous system, ADH, all coming online. And they all have one single unified goal. Hold on to every last molecule of sodium and water to crank up the blood volume and restore pressure. It's an absolutely brilliant survival mechanism. And this rescue mission, it leaves a very specific set of fingerprints all over the patient's lab results. You'll see the BUN to creatinine ratio climb way above 20-1. Why? Because as the kidney desperately pulls back water, urea gets pulled back with it. The sodium in the urine, it plummets to almost nothing because the kidney is hoarding every bit of salt it can. The fractional excretion of sodium, or FeNA, drops below 1%, which is just more proof of that. And the urine itself becomes super concentrated, way over 500 milliosmol per kilogram, because the kidney is trying to save water. These aren't the signs of a broken kidney. These are the signs of a very smart, very functional kidney working overtime to save the day. Okay, so we can read the clues and see that the kidney is trying to compensate. But that begs the question, what started this whole mess in the first place? What could cause such a serious drop in blood flow? Generally, the culprits fall into one of three big buckets. First, you've just lost a lot of volume. We're talking dehydration, major bleeding, or bad burns. Second, there could be a problem with the pump, with the heart itself. Things like congestive heart failure mean the heart just can't push enough blood forward to supply the kidneys. And the third bucket is systemic vasodilation, where all the blood vessels in the body get too relaxed and blood pressure tanks. You see this in things like sepsis or as a side effect of certain common drugs like NSAIDs or ACE inhibitors. So to solve the mystery, you put all the pieces together. Clue number one is the patient's story. Do they have a history that fits, like vomiting or heart failure? Check. Clue number two is looking for those classic lab fingerprints we just went over. Check. But the final definitive piece of evidence, the real smoking gun, is what happens when you give them treatment. If you push IV fluids and their kidney function bounces back almost immediately, case closed. You've just proven the problem was simply a lack of volume. And that leads us to the best part of this whole story, the resolution. Because the kidney isn't physically damaged yet, this entire scary situation is often completely reversible. as long as you catch it in time. The game plan is pretty straightforward. First things first, restore that blood flow, and that usually means giving IV fluids right away. At the exact same time, you have to find and treat whatever the root cause is. Stop the bleeding, support the heart, whatever it takes. It's also super important to stop any medications that could be making things worse. And then you just watch them closely. You track that urine output and the creatinine, and you wait to see them return to normal, which confirms the kidneys are happy again. So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that prerenal AKI is a massive warning sign from a stressed out but still healthy organ. It is not a death sentence for the kidneys. If you can recognize it early and treat it quickly by restoring that blood flow, you can see a complete 100% recovery of kidney function. But that does leave us with one last kind of sobering thought. This condition is really a fork in the road. It's reversible. But what happens when that warning sign is missed or it goes ignored? What happens when a thirsty kidney is left to starve for too long? Well, that's when a totally reversible problem can become a permanent one.